Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by today's co-host, Nick Pretzel. Nick, how are you doing this fine Saturday morning?
I'm doing great, James. That rain finally cooled us off a little bit, so the heat wave is not gone, but it's not as oppressive. So I'm happy as a lark and ready to talk some Steelers news.
I love it, man. Oppressive like those Ravens fans are trying to be to you on TikTok, but they ain't got nothing on you, buddy. If you're not following our TikTok account, Nick's doing a tremendous job on it. It's just Steelers by the Lake really growing the community there.
We enjoy the engagement, so any salty Ravens fans are welcome anytime. We will gladly take you on our page.
So many flavors. Why they got to choose salty? I don't get it.
Maybe it's because my last name's Pretzel. They just know. So.
Speaking of delicious things, I'm going to get right into our sponsor. Steelers by the Lake podcast is sponsored in part by the Edinburgh Hotel Bar at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinburgh, with a full menu including daily lunch and dinner specials and a family-friendly smoke-free environment. Details are available at 814-734-5103 or online at edinburghhotelbar.com. The Edinburgh Hotel Bar, where you had me at hotel. So check them out if you haven't checked them out before. Good friends of ours, they're doing a sponsorship for us to help us out with the costs for recording here, because it's not all free. Wish it was. It's not, though.
Well, certainly would be nice. Yeah, give them a check out. At some point here, I'm probably gonna, since I'm in the area, gonna head on down there and do a little walkthrough if Pat is cool with it, to give a little tour of the place. So if you check out our TikTok, you might see that coming soon.
Awesome. So let's get into the news. There's a little bit going on since last week, and we're going to touch base with what we're aware of here. First off, last show we talked to you guys about the subtraction of running back Jonathan Ward. They filled that slot with a long snapper by the name of Tucker Addington. So now some competition for Christian Kuntz. I don't know if it's really competition as much as just making sure that you have another guy available in case he pulls a muscle and needs a day off or something. Can't imagine how stressful that long snapping job is, you know?
Hey, I've tried long snapping before. It's not easy. So kudos to those guys. And also, yeah, good to have a guy there too. Not even just necessarily have a guy there if he gets hurt or tweaks something or something along those lines, but just to give him a little bit of that veteran break, that he doesn't necessarily need to be doing every rep out there. And when you get to some of those back of the roster guys, there's no need to endanger that risk of hurting yourself further. So I love bringing in this type of a guy to, at least for camp, and to also be a little bit of a push, just to be like, hey, nobody's job is ever really secure. And so that way it gets you to work a little harder, like a little bit of a fire under the ass, so to speak, and get you going.
Yeah, I like it, especially for you need to keep, as they like to say, an old saying, but the Rolodex full. Got to have that Rolodex full, right? So if something were to happen mid-season, at least you know this guy, you're comfortable with him, he knows your system and your coaches. And that way you have two full lines in the specialist room, right? You already have a backup kicker and a backup punter. If you really want to call it a backup punter, it's more of a competition going on in the punting room. But if you have two full lines of all three, they can both be practicing at the same time instead of having some limitation by only having one long snapper. So I think that's an important thing, especially with training camp only a few weeks away at this point. This time of year, a lot of youth football camps are held locally. This is the James Conner time of year, right? He always comes in town and does his training camp, a little mini youth football camp. In Pittsburgh, George Pickens has been doing that for a few years. After being traded away, apparently it was supposedly confirmed that he was still going to do a youth football camp, and then since has decided not to. The organization running it has kind of backed down from their original statements saying that they had a commitment from him and had confirmed it. and basically are saying that he was in communication and they overstepped. And it sounds to me like George Pickens' teams threatened to sue him basically and said, get my name out of your mouth. Regardless of it, he was scheduled to be there and decided not to be there. And Pat Fryermuth has stepped up to the plate, and Pat will be there, and he will be the team representative in this youth football camp. And it sounds as though they're attempting to try to get some more Steelers to go too. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those younger back of the roster or wide receivers show up there, just so if it is young kids expecting to have a wide receiver coach them, that there will also be some wide receivers there. So a really bad look for George. I know he's not a Steeler anymore, but if you made a promise, you kind of need to keep your promise. And boy, kind of points a little bit more so that Pittsburgh made the right move getting him out of town here. What's your take on all this?
I mean, you see all the videos circulating, especially now, of the history of Steelers players post-Steelers, especially wideouts that get traded or cut or whatever comes to pass there, or they move on in free agency. And it's usually not the best road for most of them. There have been a few outlying cases of success, but it's not the norm. And when you get a guy like George, who's a bit of that crash out kind of mentality of, if I'm not getting the ball, I don't care if the team's winning, I'm still throwing a fit and getting into a fisticuffs match with the DB down the field or suplexing him. So that kind of mentality, I think, is good to not have at these youth football camps, because these kids look up to these guys, and it's going to be better for them to have a guy like Muth there, to have a guy like potentially Roman Wilson there, if they can get him to go, or Calvin Austin, guys that can still bring experience from the NFL or from college level football to these kids, while also having a bit more of a team mentality. You look at some of the tape from Roman Wilson leading up to the draft last year, talking about no block, no rock. Like, you get that sort of team mentality in the room, and I think that'll benefit these kids and then benefit the future of the NFL as well, because that's what these kids are. Is they're going, some, not all of them, but some of them will go on one day to be the future stars of the NFL. So it's really good to see the guys be more willing to go and willing to coach these kids and be more of a role model than somebody who's going to flake out when they had committed to something in the first place. So not saying anything for certain. I don't know what those back of the room conversations were. Georgia's team, don't sue us. We're not saying you're guilty or innocent until proven guilty. But on that note, what we have been hearing doesn't look good. So I don't dislike the fact that we're getting those guys in there. I think it's better for a Steelers camp to have a Steelers player, and to be able to get potentially more in there, I think just benefits the kids overall. So I think it's the right move by the Steelers. I think it's a great decision by Muth to move whatever he needed to move to be there, and I like it.
Yeah, especially like Pat Fryermuth is on vacation right now.
Yeah.
So he's going to come back from his vacation and go straight to helping these kids out at a youth camp that he wasn't even intending on doing. So I think that this, more so than having the stress on George Pickens not really living up to his promises previously, I think that the real stress here should be on the strength of character that Pat Fryermuth is showing. We've seen the last couple of years with him in interviews really becoming a leader to the team. He's one of the most experienced guys on the offensive side of the ball now, one of the few on a second contract there. And he's showing it even off the field when he doesn't have to. So this is just the kind of stuff that you love to see in a cornerstone player for the offensive side of the football with Pittsburgh. And I love every bit of it. So hats off to Pat Fryermuth. Hats off to the other guys, whoever they end up being, because I'm sure there's going to be a couple of them. If Pittsburgh says we're going to try to get a couple more, then a couple of guys are going to do it. So hats off to all of them. They're making sure they understand that the youth and their passion for the game is the future of the game. Regardless if these kids ever make it to the pros or not, their fanhood could be in the hinge there with seeing their heroes basically back out on them or step up to the plate for him. So smart move for Pat in every way. High quality dude, and I guarantee you there are a bunch more Pat Fryermuth youth-size jerseys are about to be sold in the Pittsburgh area.
Absolutely.
So it won't hurt his wallet in any way either, I'm sure. One person who's a little bit lighter on the wallet these days, the Cleveland Browns edge rusher Okoronkwo Ogbinio, I think is the first name. I forget
Your pronunciation is going to be better than mine, James.
I don't even have the spelling in front of me right now. All I know is that he was the edge rusher opposite Myles Garret last year, and probably the most productive one that they've seen in a while. Decided he don't want to be on the Browns anymore, and they released him. Very odd time of year for that, but there's an interesting pattern going on here with players opposite of Myles Garret, Nick. I mean, you've noticed this too, right?
Yeah, it's been sort of a revolving door. It reminds me of, if you're a Harry Potter fan, the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. It was just one in, one out, one in, one out, and it just kept on going. So maybe they'll find their Professor Snape to stick around for a bit. But we certainly here hope not. We hope they continue to be the same old brownies. But yeah, it's interesting to see that no one really wants to play opposite him. And I don't know if it's more of a issue with Garrett himself or just an issue with the Browns organization, because even Myles Garret was looking at leaving and used some pretty strong language about not wanting to be there until they decided to make him the highest paid defensive player ever by a decent margin. And so then he decided that was maybe worth staying. So it's a interesting thing to look at. Not sure what exactly is going on within the organization, whether it's the personnel or the team as a whole, but it's definitely a strange thing to watch occur, but something that as a division rival, you don't hate to see happen to a team that's not yours.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been like one after another. It seems more recently we saw Jadeveon Clowney come there and then have his worst year as a professional in the NFL. He only had one sack that year opposite of Myles Garret. And the only thing that makes any sense, because what you would think, what the common perception would be from the common media people is that, well, Myles Garret grabs all the attention. So if you're playing on the opposite side of him, you should have all the easiest matchups and never get double teamed and all that. The problem is that Myles dictates what his matchup will be and always has. So if your left tackle is weaker than your right tackle, he demands to go up against the left tackle. That's what he did with Pittsburgh when they had Danny, what's his name? Dan Moore that just left town. He demanded to go against Dan Moore. When they had a stronger right tackle or a weaker right tackle, he'd demand to go on that side. And then he's always flip-flopped. And then you see highlights of him going up against practice squad level guards on the inside, doing a crossover dribble move before the snap and getting them to go for fake moves. These aren't starters that he's even doing this to. It's backup level and practice squad level dudes that he's consistently cherry picking his matchups on. And then when he does get those double and triple teams, as we see with the highlights of that one game where a couple tight ends were following him from one side or another pre-snap, he literally runs from the matchup. So to me, it's an obvious thing. If you're going to play opposite Myles Garret in Cleveland, you will get the toughest matchup every single week. And it makes you look like a worse player than you actually are. You're not even getting your normal baseline production because you're getting the toughest matchup on the offensive line every single week. And why would anyone want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's sold as you're going to have less attention drawn to you. And then they play and they're like, wow. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney literally said it on his way out of town. I'm sick of having the toughest matchup every week because Myles doesn't want to do it.
Yep.
And the next year he went right back to being a very productive player and has been so since. So yeah, it's to me as much about Myles as it is the organization letting him get away with that too. So yeah,
that's some very good insight there. One thing I did want to bring up that we hadn't really talked about prior to the show, but just popped back into my head, some Aaron Rodgers comments. Rodgers did mention this is going to be his last year in the NFL. But with that, he also kind of came along with a bit of a conversation of how he's been very impressed by rookie quarterback Will Howard and how he's sort of
Mhm.
taken him under his wing. So that's something I'm grateful to hear, that Rodgers is willing to be that coach and that mentor. We saw it work out very well with Jordan Love in Green Bay. Now he had some more time there to work with him, but potentially coaching up a rookie this year to maybe not have to be as worried about a quarterback next year with the draft in Pittsburgh. I don't know that they want to bank on that. But James, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers being here for a year and kind of coaching up our rookie Will Howard?
I don't think you could ask for a better quarterback coach from your starting quarterback. What we've seen is him really help backup quarterbacks the last 5-6 years as he starts to understand that his NFL mortality is coming to an end, that his career is very much so closer to the end than it is to the beginning. He really has taken these other quarterbacks under his wing and helped them develop. So we saw Sam Darnold have his best year after being a backup to Aaron Rodgers. He just had a lights out year last year. We saw the development of Jordan Love, as you said, and he's saying all the right things, and all his teammates are saying that he's doing the right things as well. He's talked multiple times about his style of leadership being the servant leadership style, which is something I very much so fall in line with myself. And so I really respect that when somebody says, you know what, I'm not going to just tell somebody how to do something. I'm going to stand next to them. I'm going to pick up a shovel and I'm going to dig that hole with them to show them that I am not above anything that I'm asking of you. That's such an important and effective way of leadership, in my opinion. And I think that it's got a real good chance of really helping right the ship here. Pittsburgh's been in a situation for the last 5-6 years now where it's kind of been without a pilot on the offensive side. You had a couple years of Kenny Pickett where it looked like there was some promise there, and then unfortunately he never got to get to that next level. Justin Fields just really never had full buy-in from the front office. Russell Wilson just completely collapsed at the end of last year. Mr. Trubisky was a complete train wreck. It's just not been a pretty situation at quarterback the last 5 to 6 years. Now maybe there's a chance of righting the ship here. So I don't have any fallacies of thinking that Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns this year. But even if he puts up last year's numbers, it'll be a drastic improvement to what Pittsburgh has had in that position. And I think that you might even get a chance with his skill level, with his ability to distribute the ball around the field. You might even get into some situations in the fourth quarter where you're up by a couple of scores, which is real foreign territory for Pittsburgh. But if you're up by a couple of scores, you might be able to bring Will Howard into the game and start getting him some in-game experience to see if he can handle this at the NFL level or not. Preseason is great, but you need to see him in the regular season, and the only way you're going to see him in the regular season is either Rodgers and Mason Rudolph get injured, or you get up by a couple scores in a game and you're confident that you're not going to lose it, and you allow him to start getting some playing time and see if he can handle things. So I love every aspect of it. I love what I've seen from Aaron Rodgers. I love what he's saying. And, man, if he can help develop Will Howard, it'll be the best signing they've made in the last 5 years.
I like to call the pair of them AR-15, even though he's not wearing the number 15. I was hoping he would take it, but and then Will Howitzer Howard. So I'm hoping we can get to see some big splash plays out of the both of them. But I love the mentorship role there.
Absolutely. Last talking point before we get into our positional roster battles today is going to be another AFC North guy, or former currently AFC North guy, as he was released by his team. Justin Tucker officially getting his suspension, a 10-game suspension from the NFL for conduct detrimental to league policy, or however they worded it, basically being an a-hole off of the field and a complete jag-off to women. So an appropriate punishment. Who in the world is going to sign him knowing that when you sign him, he will not be able to play for you for the first 10 games that he's active?
Probably a team that signed a guy who wouldn't be active for the first 11 games when they signed him in the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. They've had some trouble at kicker too, so I wouldn't put it past them, but we'll see, I guess. But yeah, he's not appealing the suspension either.
No, there's no reason to. There's way too much evidence to try. And this wouldn't be the first time they did that. Obviously, you mentioned with Deshaun Watson, but let's not forget the first female kicker in the NFL, and Kareem Hunt there, in him and his brutal assault of a female. So that would not be an abnormal thing for the Browns to do. They seem to prefer to wait till somebody on another team has assaulted a woman and then bring them onto the roster, which is just crazy to me. But that's the way they've been operating things. So I won't be surprised if they decide to bring Justin Tucker into camp. Grateful that Pittsburgh's in a good situation for a kicker, and we don't have to worry about that because Chris Boswell is as clean as a whistle, man.
Boz for president.
That's it, Boz for president. Meat and potatoes time. You ready for it?
That it is. I'm ready if you are.
All right, so today we started off our series last week with the defensive line and the safety room, talking about those position battles and what we're looking forward to. Today we're going to talk middle linebackers and outside linebackers. We're going to start middle linebackers, and let's go over that group first. I think the top of it is pretty clear to an extent. I think we all expect Patrick Queen to be number one, Peyton Wilson probably to be number two with him. It immediately gets fuzzy for me after that. You go out and spend this money on Malik Harrison, so I like that. I feel like there's not much of a chance he doesn't make the roster. Cole Holcomb's making a good amount of money. He was expected to be the number one middle linebacker. He looks like Hulk Holcomb out there. It's incredible with what work he's put in the offseason for his body. And it, to me, feels like that top four is really solidified, except for the fact that there might be somebody who comes out of preseason and says, I don't have a good middle linebacker, and wants to trade for one.
Yes.
And if they do, you might have some value in a guy like Cole Holcomb or even maybe Malik Harrison, if you wanted to hang on to Cole Holcomb, and being able to trade one of these guys away for some future assets if you like that back of the roster grouping behind them enough.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that factors into that too is Cole Holcomb coming off of that injury. He had wanted to go toward the end of last year, but they erred on the side of caution and him getting better. And as you mentioned, it looks like it's paying off. He looks incredible out there.
Yeah.
So I'd be very interested to see who the trade target that Pittsburgh would be comfortable letting go would be. I mean, they were comfortable letting George go a year early, but I mean, they got a third round pick in return for that. So you never know what you can get out of something. I know a lot of the people that were engaging with our TikToks were very much reminding us that we lost George Pickens. We didn't lose him. We traded him. We got value back. But yeah, it's a great problem to have, as we kind of mentioned before the show, to have so many guys that you're comfortable with keeping. It's really going to be a fun preseason this year to watch these guys go out there and compete, because they're going to have to in order to earn a spot on this roster. So it's going to be a really fun preseason to see, especially on the defensive side of the ball, with all these different guys that really could make a roster on a lot of teams, even if they don't sign with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and just for 100% clarity, those four are probably the top four in most people's opinion. But right behind it is a 5 and a 6 that would make most teams, and one or two of them may make it in Pittsburgh here. We've got Carson Bruner, who's the rookie, 7th-round pick, son of former tight end Mark Bruner. And then we have Mark Robinson, who's been that back of the roster inside linebacker for the last few years. Now he's actually entering the 4th year of his rookie deal, so made it as a 7th-round pick for 4 years on the roster, which is pretty impressive. Mark has been a special team standout, forcing 2 fumbles last year on special teams, and really a thumper against the run. Carson Bruner, more of the run and chase style, who can play against the run but excels in coverage. So it's really a deep room, and deeper than it's been in a while, where to me there's 6 rosterable guys very easily. And I don't mean any slight to Devin Harper, that's a backup inside linebacker behind all of those guys. Just he's got a long road to attempt to make this team. Best chance is probably a practice squad dude. But I really like the room. I think the competition there is going to be awesome. And they're going to have a tough time cutting it down to 4 if they only keep 4. I won't be surprised if they do 5 guys in this room.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either, especially with the guys that are there. It's just going to be hard to find space for enough guys when you only got 53 spots on the roster.
Yeah.
I know that they've been talking about adding potentially extra games to the season or an extra game. So hopefully, if they do that, they either add in another bye week or at least increase the roster spot a little bit to have a little bit of a more of a depth for some of these guys to be able to have a rotational piece and accommodate for that. But with the league being the way it is with the current 53-man roster, it's hard, a good problem to have, but a hard one to see. And luckily, it's Tomlin and Khan's problem and not ours because we'd want to keep them all.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I agree with you to where if they do go to the 18-game season, which I think is kind of inevitable, you have to increase the roster size at least to 55, at least to give 2 more guys. Because specifically, if nothing else, special teams, you're going to have some of these guys kind of get burned out. You need some more back of the roster dudes to help cover that kind of stuff. And then you can keep that extra outside linebacker, middle linebacker, corner, wide receiver, whatever, for those special teams plays, and almost build more of a special teams roster rather than it only being, 4 or 5 special teams guys that you keep. You know what I mean? So let's move over to the outside linebacker room. Obviously, everyone knows who the starters are there with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. The number 1 backup is also not in question with Nick Herbig and his extreme pass rushing capabilities. They go out and draft rookie Jack Sawyer, who most expected to go a lot higher in the draft than he did. And to me, that's the top 4 positions, and they're pretty locked down. But there's a real serious competition after that. And again, a real similar situation to what we were just talking about is, do you keep a 5th guy? Do you keep a 6th guy? Probably not 6 at outside linebacker, but you start talking about guys with extreme special teams value and possible upside behind that starting unit and even those backup guys. Again, another difficult decision here.
Absolutely. When you've got guys like Jeremiah Moon being your 3rd guy on one side of the linebacking depth chart, you're in a pretty good spot because he was able to contribute in some ways in big moments of games last year. Then you've got a guy like Julius Welshoff who balled off in the preseason and was looking like he might be a stud for us. Unfortunately got hurt and didn't get to see as much of him last year, but he carries that international player exemption, so we can hold on to him for a little while longer. Just not on the 53. It might have to be a practice squad kind of guy if we're going to retain him, just because we have so much of a deep room here. And then the final backup guy backing up Alex Highsmith and Jack Sawyer is Eku Leota. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation there. But another guy who is similar to Devin Harper in that not as much of a decorated veteran, but still a backup presence nonetheless that Pittsburgh saw value in bringing in. So I don't know that he has a chance of dethroning Captain Jack, as they called him back at Ohio State, because he was a captain on their team, which I love that nickname. So I think I'll just keep it, even though he probably won't be a captain for us, at least for a little while. But yeah, a great room to have of these guys who can really contribute in meaningful ways. And it's going to be hard to pick which ones to cut. So looking forward to seeing the battle specifically between Moon and Welshoff to try and be a potential 5th guy there and see what they can contribute in the preseason and in camp. So those are my 2 guys that I'll be watching from this room for sure.
I'm with you on that 100%. I'm excited to see what we get in the preseason from the Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer group. If those 2 get to spend a significant amount of time getting after the quarterback at the same time, that could be really exciting. In the regular season, I'm also excited to see what we can get out of that room as far as against the run. That was kind of an issue for Nick Herbig previously. Jack Sawyer, the bigger-bodied 6'4", 260-pound outside linebacker, known for being good in that stack and shed run defending role. So I'm excited about the possibility of that helping us in those heavy run teams like against the Ravens. That was a real issue for Pittsburgh, allowing 299 yards rushing in that playoff game. You had to get tougher up front in that outside linebacker room, that defensive line room. You couldn't let up these huge runs anymore, and I think the room got a lot better with doing that. Julius Welshoff, anybody that watched the show last year knows that I had a real man crush going on there. That dude had a real nice preseason. It was a shame to see him go down with a knee injury in the final preseason game. And then lose his what would have been rookie season to an eligibility thing with an injury most of the season. But Moon, yeah, he had that block punt, so he did show some splash, some ability. He's got length and athleticism. Those are huge things for special teams. But length is an issue for Welshoff too. He's 6'6", Moon's 6'5". These are some long outside linebackers. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that second and third unit outside linebacker wise in the preseason. And where does it end up? Where does it end up? Do we end up having no choice but to keep a fifth guy because of it? But I think at the bare minimum, when you start talking last year's team versus this year's team, you have to look at this group and say, Jack Sawyer is an upgrade from Jeremiah Moon.
Yep.
Right? Moon didn't help you on defense at all. When he was out there, he didn't get tackles against the run. He didn't get to the quarterback. He just was a guy out there. Sawyer's a huge step up from that. So I think you've got a positive step in the right direction there. And even in the middle linebacker room with Malik Harrison, he was one of the pieces that helped Baltimore turn their defense around. At the beginning of the season, they were having a real big problem in the secondary and against the run. When they started playing Malik Harrison more, their defense against the run got a lot better.
Yeah.
So you can expect him to really help contribute in those games where it's a run-heavy game also. So I like what we've seen in additions to depth in both rooms, middle linebacker and outside linebacker. I think both positions are stronger for what they did in the offseason. And we're going to have some real fun position battles to keep an eye on through training camp and these preseason games that are just right around the corner now.
Absolutely. And I'm just getting it pulled up here to get the exact numbers, because I'm pretty sure in that the postseason game against the Ravens last year, we had the exact same number of passing yards, and they purely outgained us in the run game. And to see some of these guys, and do a little bit of a nod back to our last episode where we talked about the defensive line guys a little bit, and how we brought in Y.A. Black and we brought in Derek Harmon, and to see like some of those guys and Jack Sawyer and potentially Malik Harrison on the field at the same time, and that sort of number 2 role, that'll be really good to see, because Cam Hayward and TJ Watt aren't always out there. You would love for them to be able to be out there on every play, but sometimes somebody twists an ankle or just needs to come off for a play or two. And you get those number 2 guys out there, and that's when you start getting burned with people like Jeremiah Moon, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Nothing against him, but he, like you said, he just didn't really contribute on the special teams that season, or on the regular defense that season. So to be able to see all of that and see how much we can hopefully stop that this year. I know a lot of Ravens fans in the comments of the TikToks that we've been posting have been being all like, oh, we beat you twice last year. Well, scoreboard, Pittsburgh has the better record against y'all all time, so calm down a little bit. But now we've established a means of attacking the weakness that we had against you last year. So it'll be really good to see those matchups and see how much of an improvement we have with some of these younger, bigger guys who hopefully make the roster. I don't anticipate them not, but seeing them be able to be out there contributing in a real big way.
Yeah. Even low key on that D line, that Daniel Okwale signing, that was his specialty in New England, is stopping the run as a defensive end. So even that base level guy that you're adding, run stoppers. So I love it. I love it. I think the run defense got a lot better this offseason. We're going to see some games this year where teams have a tough time moving the ball on the ground at all against us. Now, those really good rushing teams like Baltimore, they're still going to have some success. But I don't think you're going to see any more 299-yard performances against defense.
Yeah, so we had 29 rushing yards. They had 299. They outgained us rushing by 270 yards in that game. We had 251 passing yards. They had 165 passing yards. So we outgained them in the passing game, and they just ran all over us.
Yeah.
So to be able to address that and be able to have a more stalwart run defense is going to be a huge thing for Pittsburgh this year. And it's going to be an exciting thing to watch in those division matchups, especially against Baltimore. And now that the Browns have some depth and youth at running back as well in their rookie running back, Quidshaw Judkins, who is one of the guys that I was hoping Pittsburgh would have grabbed, but I'll also take Caleb Johnson any day. So it'll be a good time this year for division matchups. I'm looking forward to watching those games, hopefully at Edinburgh Hotel Bar.
Absolutely, buddy. So unless you've got anything, let's wrap the show up and get on ready for next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, on anywhere you can find your podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review. Make James over here very happy. And until next time, these are your hosts, James and Nick, signing off.
Peace.
Steelers by